have mercy, look at how the time goes.
And welcome everybody to this episode of the Coming Home Podcast with John Allen. I am your humble host, John Allen. I just want to start off by giving you all some contact information. If you have any questions about my podcast, any suggestions, if you know of anyone that you would like to hear me speak with on my podcast, please send me an email, john@johnalanpod, john@johnallanpod.com. Today, I am very happy to be speaking to this young brother. I haven't seen him since I had him and some friends of his over here in Norway. Coming at us from New York City, Mr. John Stanley. How you doing, my friend?
Hey, John, how are you? Hello, listeners.
You know what? Thank you for waking up so early for me. You are a musician now. It's 12 noon in New York City, but for a musician, that's sunrise.
Right. It's usually sunrise, but it's one of those things. I do a sleeping pattern that's crazy. So I have like 3 shifts. So the first one I'll stay up until 7 in the morning and then go to sleep. I don't get up till 3. And then another one I'll go to sleep at 1:30 at night and get up at 10. And it's just, it varies. I think it's from traveling a lot.
But you know what? That's not such a crazy way to do it. I've had periods in my life, depending on my work schedule, I've kind of broken it up like that and sleep for, 3 or 4 hours at a time, get up, be active, and then go back and get the other half of my sleep in. So it's not that unusual.
Right. Well, you're lucky because usually once I'm up, that's it. It's a wrap for me.
You know what? I could sleep at any time. If you were quiet right now for 10 minutes, I could go to sleep right now.
So envy you. My father can do the same thing. He could drink 4 cups of coffee and go right to sleep.
Oh man, yeah.
Yeah, I can't do it.
You are someone that I have so much respect for. You are living a lifestyle that I have not quite been able to reach myself. And that lifestyle is the lifestyle of a working musician who is actually living off of music. You are currently the music director for Miss Patti LaBelle.
Yes, sir.
How long have you had that gig?
Music director, probably the last 15 years, but I started out as her background singer. So we're coming up. Actually, we should be here. We're at 30 years.
30 years.
30 years. I started as just singing background. Yes, sir.
See, and that fascinates me because there's not a lot of people who have a 30-year gig. Forget about the music industry. I'm talking about people who have worked at one job, period, for 30 years. And you're still young. You're not even 50 yet, are you?
I'll be 50 in September.
You'll be 50 in September, and you're 30 years on the same job. That's amazing.
Yes, sir. It's been, she's one of those, Patti is one of those people, it's not just that she's my employer, but she is my friend and my sister, mother sometimes. And, when she's the type of person that if she likes you, she wants to keep you.
Yeah.
And so that's how it's generally been for the years. It's been a kind of little running joke in the industry because a lot of acts, they change album or CD concepts and they change certain things. So they'll keep a band together maybe a year and a half or 2, then they'll change it up.
Right.
She wants to keep, all of her good people because that's when she performs at her best. When she feels like, like you should know her, that you all are in sync.
Yeah, yeah. Well, it comes off in her live performances, not just her live performance, but her band's live performance. You can hear that you all are tight. The other artists in her band, the other musicians in her band, I'm sorry, how long have they been in there? Are you the one that's been with her the longest?
Now, the funniest thing is that I have not been with her the longest. I know Miss Debbie Henry, who is one of her background singers, and Brenda Roy. Now, they started out earlier with her. I think probably I have the most accumulation of consistent years.
I see.
But they, at certain times, Brenda Roy, who's singing with us now, we have Brenda Roy, B. Slade, and Debbie Henry. Brenda Roy is a member of the Walter Hawkins family, and so she sings with, sang with them for years, still does. And Debbie, I can't not think of the artist. He's a piano man. I can't think of the man that she's been touring with, but it comes and goes. But yeah, Debbie has done it probably the longest, and it's probably about 40,
Wow.
42, 43 years.
But you've been there 30 years straight with no break. Wow.
Yes, sir. I took a mini break for 1 year. And
Okay.
then I went back.
Okay, yeah. Let me ask you this then, because again, that fascinates me that you've been in that same gig. And when I say same gig, I don't want it to sound, I don't want you to think, or I don't want my listeners to think that I'm trying to make it sound boring. Quite the opposite. Right. Miss Patti has, she has a rather fluid style. You can go all the way back to the 80s when she was doing, movie gigs, with the Beverly Hills Cop and all that stuff with that sound. But then you can go back to the 70s where she had more of a pure soul R&B sound. You can go forward to where she is. So she has this eclectic, this very flowing style of music. So I would imagine then that you, and actually I know this, I guess I'm saying this for the benefit of my listeners, but you are also a multi-sided, a multifaceted musician. You don't just play, you don't just get down with one style of music.
Right. No, I do a whole array, and I love almost all types of music. So, I'm interested in it all.
Yeah. Now, where are your roots in music? What did you start out with? Take us back to when you started with Miss Patti, you were around 19, 20 years old. What were you doing to prepare yourself for that? You may not have known you were preparing for that, but you were, the wherever you set foot in, first set foot in music was the first step. And then several steps later, here you are with Miss Patti. Where did it start?
It started, someone that was affiliated with my school, Go Morgan State Bears in Baltimore, Maryland. Somebody that was affiliated with the great music program that they have there, but he was an older classman, called and asked me if I could, accompany some of his friends who I also knew the next day at an audition for Patti. And Patti LaBelle. And I was like, oh my goodness. And they're like, and while you're there, you might as well audition too. So I went, and it was like 4 of us, and I was the only one that she actually chose out of the 4 that came up, but it was a lot of people, quite a few people auditioning that day. But prior to doing the audition, I was doing a lot of musical theater. And I've always kept a church job as well. So, I'd go on the road and do this production for 2 or 3 months. And then I'd come back and I'd be minister of music at a church.
Okay.
Either in Baltimore or DC. So a lot,
Okay. So it started in the church, in other words.
It started in the church. But as you were talking about, I know hopefully I'm not jumping around too much for you.
Oh, that's okay. That's okay.
About the musical history. I grew up in right outside of Richmond, Virginia, a little farming town called Goochland County, Virginia.
Goochland County. Now that's a southern name for a town if there ever was one. Goochland.
and all the residents call it Gushland.
Okay, there you go. There's that local dialect coming in.
So I grew up basically I grew up in a all-white family, although I'm biracial. But I grew up in an all-white family, and we.
How did that happen? Explain that. Let me just get you on a little sidetrack here, because that's an interesting thing to say.
Yeah, I grew up in a biracial family, and I'll just say, without putting my parents' business out there a little bit too much, that sometimes things happen, and
I see.
but
I see.
You make up for it.
I see.
And you get past it and you keep moving.
There you go. Amen. Amen.
But that being said, I could have grew up in a more loving home of both parents. But we were listening to bluegrass and country music, Hank Williams Jr., Ricky Skaggs, the Judds, Loretta Lynn, Conway Twitty, and then we had 45s, and sometimes we would be listening to Marvin Gaye, we would be listening to the Supremes, we were listening to, so it was just a whole eclectic mix.
Now that kind of mirrors my musical background. My mother was and is very much into the gospel singing, the old school 60s and 70s R&B and soul, Gladys Knight, even up to Anita Baker, up into the 80s. It seems like my mother's taste kind of stopped in the 80s, though. So let's say Anita Baker is the most recent artist that she likes. So I had that, that black gospel soul R&B thing. But then where I grew up was way out in rural Ohio, predominantly white. So there comes the rock influence.
That's definitely you.
Yeah, definitely. So it's that mix there. So you had a little bit of that mix with more of a foundation in the country, rural type of music thing, but also with the gospel, the soul, and R&B thing.
Yeah, it. And the funny thing about back then is that my parents went to. When I would go to church with my parents, they were Methodist and Baptist, and both those churches were basically 100% white. And I didn't start getting the gospel experience until I started playing piano at the age of, I was a late starter at the age of 10. And someone that I went to school with said, hey, and this is at the African-American church that was probably a mile down the street from me where I lived, and they said, we need somebody to play for our youth choir. They said, and you play well enough, would you like to do it? And so that was my introduction.
And how old were you then?
I was 10.
10, okay.
Yeah, and then I started doing that, and I eventually, before I left to go to college, I was playing for every choir.
Let me ask you this. Did that music sense, did that skill on the piano and that skill with your voice, because, you're talking about piano playing, but you're a fantastic vocalist. We're going to talk about that as well. But did that come easily to you? Was it a natural thing, or did you have to work at it? Can you remember back then?
Yeah, I definitely can. I remember if it had not been for my parents, like I love playing the piano. And I actually love to sing, but I would only do it, like I wouldn't practice it as a skill. I would just do it around the house. And my parents were pushing me. They said, you should sing. You have a really good voice. And so, I would say that piano comes to me more naturally than singing. Really? But I had to work for everything that I got for the singing thing. And so for those people out there who think that, if your range is, if you had 5 notes, because I think I started out with 5, stretch those chords. They will move. They will move.
Because it is a physical training thing. People don't understand that singing is physical. It's not just something you do. It's something you really have to train yourself up to. It's a physical exertion.
It definitely is, and the things that you have to do. And sometimes I'm not so good at it either, but people don't understand with people who are in theater or who are just in music in general. If you are a singer, some of the things that an artist preparing for concerts or the roads have to do so that you can get the optimal performance, when you come to see them. And that's to say, like, if they finish a concert one night in Akron, Cleveland, Ohio, and they have to go to Norway the next day and then sing when they get off right off the plane. Well, of course, there's not going to be any drinking. There's not going to be any of that. You've got to get your rest and you've got to drink your tea. And it's a whole regimen that you go through.
Yeah, it's almost like, I as an athlete and as a musician / performer, I melt those two worlds together. Success in either one has to do with repetition, training, in other words.
Right.
You're not just going to be a strong powerlifter. You have to train at that. You're not just going to be a talented musician, or you may have the talent, but you can lose your skills if you don't work at that. So to me, those two worlds are symbiotic. I can melt them together and imply those.
Really?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
I was going to ask you about that today, because I was wondering, because we often are likened to, or like others, that we see something in ourselves that we may not have.
Yes. Yeah.
Or and it's not, and we both, like, I go to the gym, but not like you. But I do music for Patti. You still do music and write and do this, but we just do it in different veins or whatever.
Right.
But it's always, there's, it doesn't have to be the complete person. Like, it's not an obsession. Like, I just got to be like John. Everything has to be
So we both walk around saying, "I want to be like John."
Right. Everybody else in America, I want to be like Mike. But
I think I told you this when you were here in Norway, that you are living the life that I aspire to live as far as music goes. Like I said when we started this conversation, now you are in a position where music is your livelihood. I'm in a position where, yes, I'm writing, I'm singing, I'm performing, recording and all that stuff, but it's not at a level where I can do just that. If I could have things the way I wanted, I would be doing what you're doing, exactly the way you're doing it.
Well, I guess my biggest question, and I had thought about this when I talked to you, because we've kept in touch through the years, but sometimes we don't talk in depth. But I really wondered today, because I wanted to ask you how, like you said, you can melt those worlds together. But I'll just say this. I know you have a large family. I know that you do the weight lifting as a professional bodybuilder. Powerlifter. There you go. Yeah. You knew I'd be wrong. But powerlifter, and as far as when I came to Norway, you were one of the men. Like wherever we went, everyone knew John. And so I'm just wondering, though, and I've seen some of your recordings and some of your performances, and I'm just wondering, how do you do it all? And how I couldn't even excel, I don't think, maybe I could excel at one of those things. Maybe like the family life would be perfect, but the music and the weightlifting would go off. How do you do that? Wow.
I'm going to try and make this a not too long of an answer, but it's going to be in depth. The family thing, I have my beautiful wife, Snoopy. She tells me to tell you hello. I call her Snoopy. Her name, yeah, you know what her name is, but I call her Snoopy on the air. So she says to tell me hi. And I tell you, the key to me being able to balance all of these interests that I have is her. I have quite a few friends who also are powerlifters, but they have that wife or that girlfriend who doesn't support their powerlifting or doesn't understand their desire to be a powerlifter. I also have musician friends who have that wife or that girlfriend that doesn't fully support their musical endeavors.
Right.
And I am blessed to have a wife who not only does she support me in my efforts, to expand my music and to grow as a powerlifter. She doesn't just support it. She actually, if I'm having a day where I might want to, I'm supposed to write, I'm supposed to have a writing session, but I want to drop it. She's real good at making fun of me. She's real good at making me think. She's that conscience on my shoulder, and she'll make me go in and do that writing session. Or if I want to skip a powerlifting workout, she will shame me into, she might walk by me and grab a little chunky section that's hanging. Hey, you better get in the gym, So she pushes me to do these things. So it goes beyond support.
Right.
I've been wanting to write a book for years, and I've started that project several times and stopped. But every time I take it up again, it's because she has pushed me and motivated me to do that. So she's my muse. She's my motivator. Right. And when you have a spouse, a boyfriend, or girlfriend who supports your efforts to make yourself happy, then things just have a way of falling into place. I'm doing this podcast because of her. She's been telling me for years I should do a podcast.
That's amazing.
Yeah, so I can sit here in my studio and interview good people like you and not feel guilty for not being with my family because
that could easily go. I'm sorry, I was going to say that could easily with a wife or a girlfriend could go another way.
Oh, absolutely.
Like in other words, the little jiving or ribbing that she may give you. Some men, just depends on, I guess, the connection with whomever is in a relationship, marriage, or whatever you want to call it. But it could easily go a different way because some men would be like, I don't want her saying, it would turn into resentment.
Yeah, and I think it goes back to the roots of my relationship with her. It's about mutual support, and we share the same interests, we share the same sense of humor, and the things that motivate me also motivate her. So it's just a good fit. It's a good. We've been together for 20 years now, and it gets better every day. I mean, that sounds like a cliche.
No, but that's great, man.
But it's the truth.
Equally yoked.
Yeah, she is the reason why I'm able to do these things with a clear conscience. So I'm very busy with a lot of different things. Yes, that's true. But having said that, I know you mentioned, when you were here in Norway, everybody knew who I was. I have a lot of people who I know. A lot of people know me, but my circle of friends is small.
Right.
And when I have free time from these things that I do, I would say that probably 95% of that free time is family time.
Right.
You see what I'm saying? So if I don't have a stand-up gig or a music gig or a writing session or a podcast episode, 9.5 times out of 10, I'm with my family. So so it allows me to be busy, but still be the husband and father. Yeah.
That's awesome, man.
It is.
And the only reason, and I have to ask you about this, though. I know you want to ask me questions, but I do have to ask you about this.
Sure.
On the powerlifting side, though, that to me, and I've been trying to do it. First of all, I've been wanting to do it. That was one of my goals I wanted to get to before 50, and it may still be late. Not powerlifting, but just getting a more optimal, I guess,
change your body composition. Body composition, more muscle, less fat.
Right, and all of that, and and I don't have to be, the pinup man of the year. I don't have to be Mr. GQ or the sexiest man alive. No, I don't have to. But it's just something that you want to be as a personal best. But I look at some of those, some of the regimens that the power lifters and some of the weight, the bodybuilders go through. Just the food alone, I can't even imagine. It's like, if we were back in Goochland County, we would call it slapping the hogs, because that's how much food you have to eat to keep all of this massive energy and those gains going.
Well, but let me clear something up. Okay, when you look at especially professional bodybuilders, first of all, those guys are using performance-enhancing drugs, which both requires and enables them to eat, maybe 3 times the calories that you and I would need to eat to function.
Right.
So if you remove the performance-enhancing drugs from the picture there, you will be required to eat less. You will not have to eat as much food as those guys. So the eating thing becomes more normalized, and also the training aspect, when those guys are on performance enhancing drugs, they are sometimes training twice a day for a couple, 3 hours each session. You wouldn't need that. I could get you in shape eating, 3 to 4 times a day, maybe even once or twice a day. I could get you into shape, and you could be training or working out for an hour to an hour and a half. And that's not crazy. That's not crazy. You have time for that.
That's doable.
It's doable, and it can totally change your body composition. You know, I could get you to where, and you don't want to be this big, muscle bound guy, but it can drastically change your body composition. I'm a couple years older than you. A year older. I'm 51 now, and I'm still getting a better physique. I'm still getting stronger. So it's doable, and it's not that crazy, really. I could get you. I could get you to where you'd be sitting on stage with Miss Patti, and instead of wearing a suit, I'll have you in short sleeves and a vest.
Right.
because you got that look.
And I've had that before. But the funny thing
is I've seen it.
I really do know, but my weight goes up and down. But I was going to say, I really do know what to do. It's just that oftentimes, like most people, we know what to do and what we're doing wrong. We just don't want to do it.
It's all up here in the head. It's all up in the mind. But the thing is, isn't it true that once if you can just stick it out for maybe that first month, and then you see those results, and it's like, hey, this isn't a struggle. Right. It's no longer a struggle. It becomes every time you train, every meal that you eat, it becomes motivation.
Yeah, so it's like that with any diet or anything.
It is.
You get over that first week or that first 4 days, and then it kind of clicks in.
You should take up an online coach, somebody that will hold you accountable. Do that. It can be expensive, but if you just pay for the first month to have an online coach who maybe lays out the training program, lays out the diet for you, and holds you accountable. A good online coach will hold you accountable by demanding that you send training video, for example, or demand that you send that reading from your scale, your weigh-in every day.
Right.
And then they follow up with a phone call once or twice a week. That should be enough to get you over that hump, that first month. And then it's off to the races after that, because you have a good physique. I've seen you. Everybody's weight goes up and down, but I've seen you, man, and you look, you're pretty tight, so you can get that physique. You can get that physique if you just get over that hump.
It's just difficult right now, especially here in New York with the coronavirus, because nobody is. I mean, the gym. I thought the gym was opening with phase 2. And on the very first day, I was calling at 8:30 in the morning. Yeah. And then I called at 9 and 9:30. Nobody is answering. I don't know when that's going to happen.
How big is your apartment there? Do you have room to get any kind of training equipment in your house?
No, I can't. Actually, I'm looking at a table and I'm saying to myself, I should have just bought the elliptical machine or the treadmill
instead of the table.
Because instead of this table, but New York apartments are
they're not the
smaller.
Biggest. Yeah.
No. But I have started in the last 2 or 3 weeks doing running in place and doing some things on, I'll roll my rug up on the floor here in the living room and just go and do some things, because I realize that if I don't do this, I am going to be so far from where I need to be when we actually have to get back out in society.
And along those lines, do you ever stress? I mean, I know, everyone has a certain amount of or they have a standard that they set for themselves as far as their physical condition and their appearance and whatnot. Do you find yourself ever in a situation where you're stressing about that because you are so visible in Miss Patti's band? Is that ever an issue? You know what I mean? Where you have to stress, you stress about what kind of condition you're in or how you look?
Oh, yeah. I think that just goes along.
That goes along with the job, doesn't it?
It kind of goes along with the job, because most people, and as you know this because you do entertainment as well, but most people, they are looking. You've got to have a gimmick or a look, and this is not just for somebody who is the actual main artist. Even the people that back you up on stage, they want. Patti looks beautiful. She comes out and she goes all out. And
how old is she now, by the way? I'm sorry. How old is she? Because she does not look. I don't know exactly what her age is, but she doesn't look it.
She just turned 76 in May, she has more. I just was with her this past week for 2 days, and she has more energy than you, me, and and somebody else put together.
I think she is so amazing. I think that she looks so young because she's happy. I believe that that is a reflection of her happiness and satisfaction with life. Is that a fair thing to say?
Oh no, that's definitely a fair.
Yeah,
that's definitely a fair thing to say. And if there's something that is actually taking the joy from her, like the rest of us, I guess some of us stay in whatever situation it is and get stagnant. But no, she removes it, and she just likes to stay. She likes to be happy.
I would say you like to be happy as well. I love when you post your little live stream things. Sometimes you're out for a walk or something and you're talking with the people as they check in. Sometimes you're sitting in your apartment and playing the piano. And the things that you say and the way you say it and the look of enjoyment and peace on your face. Is this a fair thing to say that John Stanley is a happy man?
I am. I'm happy pretty much in my everyday life. The only thing that stresses me and would stress my happiness is not having, and of course nobody knows where we're going to end up in the future.
No.
We don't know anything, and right now it's such an uncertain time with everything. That has been very stressful.
I've been sitting here, lucky for me, I'm very blessed in that I have several sets of legs that I can stand on. If the music isn't happening, I've got my podcast. If that's not happening, I've got stand up. If that's not happening, I at least have a writing gig. I just got a new writing gig a couple of days ago. Another band wants an album, so
that is awesome.
Oh, I love it, and that is such a fulfilling thing for me to do. But so I have all these different areas that I can delve into. But everything has been on stop. Everything has been on hold with this COVID situation. How are you dealing with that? What are you doing with your time now?
Well, it's like you said, everything has stopped, and really at one point it's literally been. It's literally stopped for 4 months of our lives, and literally the only thing you could do in terms of just day-to-day living would be, go to the grocery store, put the mask on, and they weren't asking you to do that. And then it was you can go for exercise, and running with that mask on outside is just it's just the worst.
Yeah.
And so. Getting some musical ideas from some friends about what we wanted to do in the future. But the really crazy thing is, like you said, you really can't, there's really nothing that we could really do except on the creative side if you wanted to write something. I haven't done that much writing, but we've been coming up with ideas about when things start again, how we will act and be.
Yeah. So now, when you talk about writing, are you talking about writing for your own project or under the project that is Miss Patti? Have you ever written with her?
No, I wrote a song a while ago, and I forgot what happened with that, but I've never really brought that to fruition, and I should, because everybody says, well, you're the magic fit for her, so you should be able to. But the funny thing is that it's just sometimes it's just not that easy.
Oh, believe me, I understand that.
and it's easier to write a song if you just write it full out, and the song is what it is, and whoever's voice that will sing. But sometimes, I'm just going to be honest. Yeah, we say that, Patti LaBelle, Whitney Houston, Michael Jackson, God rest their souls, but whoever else, all of these fine singers, they can sing anything, and yes, they can. But the real thing that we get into in the industry is that song right for you?
Exactly.
You know what I mean?
I do know what you mean. Yeah.
Yeah.
You could have the greatest.
You can sing anything. But
Yeah. You could have the
it still
greatest
may not
voice
be
in
your
the.
fit.
Yeah. You could have the greatest voice in the world, but I do believe that along with the voice comes the personality or the image, and a song can be totally wrong for that personality or image.
It definitely can. It definitely can be wrong, and sometimes it won't. It won't come to. I know that over the years they have really tried to. I think this was before when they were doing the movie Moulin Rouge with Christina and Little Kim and all of those, and they were. Puffy had made Puffy had did a version of Lady Marmalade and wanted Patti to do it, and she got it, and she was like, "I just can't do it. I can't see it." She said, "I can't. I just can't." And that's not the only one that she's been sent. She's been several, but I do remember Puffy's one, and it's not that his wasn't good. It's just that
it didn't fit. Yeah, it just didn't fit. Let me ask you this, John. I sing your praises. I've been doing that since 2015, since I first got to know you. I've been singing your praises to every musician friend that I have here in Norway. And one thing that I have always wondered, I've never asked you this, but one thing I've always wondered is, and I know you're satisfied, I know you found love, I know you found a family situation with Miss Patti and her project, but where is the John Stanley solo album? Because John, you it's in you. You have that in you. So where is it?
Well, I'm gonna tell you, I did. I've had, it's one of these things, it's like life, and some of your obstacles that you have in life. My singing thing is a little on the shelf. I'm going to dust that shelf off really soon. But I did do a solo album once before, but it was something that I produced myself. And I was able to get on, which here in America is a big show. It's not on, no longer on anymore in, I think, maybe the last 4 years, but Bobby Jones Gospel had been on for at least 25, 30 years.
Of course.
Every Sunday. And they put me on the show and I did the single, but the music industry, and the actual single was hot. It was actually a hot single called All Right. But the thing is that everyone in the business, and I know a lot of people behind the scenes, everyone that promised me they were going to play it on their radio station, that they were going to do this, they were going to do that. After I recorded it, they did nothing with it. My CD became a doorstopper.
I tell you, and I feel you on that. I'm not half the musician you are, but I wouldn't
say that at all.
Well, thank you. You're being too kind. But I've also been in that situation where someone of influence tells you they love you, they love your gig, they're going to do this for you, and then it just nothing happens.
I couldn't. There are many things I was telling somebody one day. If I write, I couldn't. There's no way I could write a book and still operate like I would operate in the music industry. I would have to be. I'd have to be, very, very old and in a retirement home. Because I'd be blacklisted. But there's so many names, and this was basically a gospel song that could be penned as a crossover song to and just some of the biggest names in front of the mic and behind the scenes. I got nothing.
Wow. But you got excited. But you got excited for a minute. I can imagine that kind of feedback really lifted you up.
It did. It did. But I realize now that and young people should really realize this too, is that just because you may have sang in your home church or you sing around your family and or danced or whatever your art is, they like it and they like it because, not to say that you're not good, you probably are good, but they like it is because you are who you are. When you go to a big metropolitan city like Washington, D.C., New York, Chicago, L.A., anywhere, you're going to find out that, mama's little cute little baby wasn't the only one that had talent.
Right.
And that's the thing.
And I would imagine there's a lot of people, young and old, who are talented and could make it if they were only given the shot, and they don't get the shot because, unfortunately, on top of the talent aspect, there's also this thing called marketability.
Yeah.
And if the fat cats in the suits in the offices don't think you're marketable, it could be your look, it could be who knows what it could be. But if they don't think you're marketable, it doesn't matter how much talent you have. You're not going to be the one that they promote. You're not going to be the one who gets the exposure.
No.
Sad fact. Sad fact.
Yeah. It really is. It has sometimes it has, sometimes it is talent, but there's a lot of times, as I'm sure you have witnessed, where somebody, I'll just say this, and this is one person I've never met, but I will say this, but Madonna was one of those people when she came out, and I love her music and I love her tenacity of how she has, driven herself in the industry and became, the name. Yeah. But on an honest tip, and vocally, she really doesn't do it for me as a singer. But she could sing, and she had enough talent with dance experience, and
she had a look.
She had a look, and she had a personality that, all those things together, that's a package. And that sold millions and millions and millions. And so, it's not always about being able to sing or play the greatest, but sometimes I look at people like that and I admire them.
Sure.
Because of their stick-to-itiveness.
Sure, absolutely. Her music does nothing for me. It never has. However, I respect the living daylights out of her because look at her longevity and look at what she has achieved. She knows how to market herself, and she was fortunate in the beginning that she had that strong personality, and she basically forced the industry to let her in, and that is to be respected. That is to be respected. Absolutely.
Yeah.
I like looking at your social media feed or some of your older pictures, and I see you standing beside some extremely well-known celebrities and musicians, and it fits. You belong there. You belong in those pictures. It's not like you're perpetrating something that you're not. You and this is why I say, and my wife as well, like I said, we talk about you a lot, and both of us just have this strong feeling that John Stanley is doing great things as it is, but John Stanley should also have that solo thing, that solo effort that brings him the recognition that he deserves. Where I really witnessed your broad musical abilities was when you came here to Norway in 2015. Okay. December 2015, you're on a flight on your way to Norway. Talk to me about that. Talk to me about that.
Oh my goodness. Well, I couldn't even believe before we got on the flight, of course, and I know I'm going to say his name wrong. There's two names for
Jonas
Norwegian.
Jonas Fjeld.
Jonas Fjeld. Yeah. And we called him Terje.
Tarje. Yeah.
Tarje?
Yeah, Tarje. Well, the J is like a Y. The J is like a Y. You guys would say Tarje, but it should be Tarje. But yeah, Tarje. Say Tarje.
Tarje. Well, he actually were on a conference call, and he heard some of the group members for the choir that I work with here in New York, along with Terrence Talley, which is the East Coast Inspirational Singers. And he was like, if you have like 4 guys that can come over and sing, and who put that with me.
You know who put that thought in his head, right?
I'm sure. I think I have a good clue.
I had a writing gig with him, and then I don't know, something just clicked. I'd been in contact with Terrence, and he and I go way back. Our families knew each other before we were even born. He and I, and I was talking to Jonas, and I said, "Hey, what if?" And I sent him the link to East Coast Inspirational Singers Facebook page, I believe. And then he called me back a couple days after that and said, I want to talk to these fellas.
Right.
And then that's how the whole thing got started. But you had him on that conference call.
Yeah, I had him on the conference call, and he was just excited about doing the shows, and he wanted to do these shows that were, I think it was right before, I believe the shows were either right before or right after Christmas. It was before Christmas, correct?
Right after Christmas. I think the first show was on the 26th. It's a yearly tradition that he has. He'll do this run of shows, 4 or 5 dates in between Christmas and New Year. Yeah. That's
what I remembered, like 5 or 6 shows that we did. And I think we did a matinee once or twice too, but they were all sold out. We got excellent reviews, but just being able to come to Norway, because I had never been to Norway, and see the beautiful countryside, to see all the snow, but just to experience something different. And the people could have not been more hospitable. And it was a wonderful, I was so waiting to go back again. And one day maybe it will happen again.
I think it will.
But just don't chide me about the lamb.
Well, me being the jokester that I was, I think like in the weeks up until you guys came, I sent everybody a whole series of pictures. There's this one dish that they have. It is the head of a lamb, if you can imagine this, and it's grilled the entire. And when I say the head, I'm talking the head with the teeth, the nose, the mouth, the eye. Yeah, it's nasty. Everything. And then they try to pretty it up with baked potatoes and a salad around it. But it is the head of a lamb, and they do eat that here.
I don't like any of. Now that sounds like something my mother would eat. And I don't like any of that. I don't want to see fish head. I don't want to see a boar's head, a lamb's head.
If it's looking at me, I'm probably not going to dare to eat it.
Now I don't know if Terrence or you'll confess, cop to this, but I don't know if Terrence did it or you did it. But one of you sent out prior to our trip coming, maybe about a month out before we came to Norway, sent a text message. It was a picture of a farmer standing next to a shepherd, standing next to this huge woolly lamb, and almost full grown. They said, "Oh, they're preparing him for when you come over."
I did that. I'm sorry. I did that. See, and the funny thing about it, I don't know, maybe some of y'all understood I was only kidding, but there was one of y'all, Mr. Hamilton Landrum, who I think I think he truly thought that is the type of food that was going to be served. And what was so funny is after the premiere night, if you remember, we went to Jonas Fjeld's house.
Yes.
And they were serving up food. And I said to Hamilton, I said, just talk to me before you stick your fork in anything. And he was ready. He was ready to just walk to the airport and go home.
Oh my God. No, it was great. And I'm going to tell you though, lamb, and it has nothing to do with Norway, but back in the day I had, and this was like when I was maybe 19, 20, and I was living in Baltimore. I had a gyro with lamb, and I had food poisoning for 2 weeks, and it was rough. And I have not liked lamb since.
I don't do lamb either. I just can't do it. No, I don't. I don't like the taste. No. I've been in Norway for 18, almost 19 years, but I eat as American as I can. I just don't. I can't get down with their food over here. I just can't do it. I can't do it.
Well, hey, listen. It's not well. Obviously, you're finding food somewhere else, and I know your wife is a wonderful cook because you all hosted us over your house.
John Stanley, she's a horrible cook. I'm the one that cooks the food here. I did not marry my wife because she can cook. And she knows that.
Oh my goodness!
So I'm not talking. I'm not talking out of turn here. She is a terrible cook. She'll burn water if you don't keep an eye on her. She'll burn water.
So the day that I came over to your house,
I made that food.
You made all of that.
Yes, I did.
Because I figured she was in the kitchen and we were out there and she was setting the table. So I figured
I think she was in the garage changing the tires on the car that day or so. I did all the cooking.
Much love and respect to your wife.
We love her. I tease because I love. I tease because I love. No, but
she would tell me that though, right? If we
I think she would tell you. I think she would admit that she's not that great of a cook. She really isn't. And I do most of the cooking. I've been cooking since I was 7 years old. Standing at my mother's side. So I know how to cook, and I love cooking.
Right.
And thank goodness for that, because there'd be some hungry people in here.
Right. You would be.
So 2015, and I tell you, man, the fun of those shows, and the joy of getting to meet you face to face, it still resonates today. People still, every once in a while, I run into people who remember those shows. And they ask about you and Terrence and everyone else in the East Coast Inspirational. So you guys made an impression here. But with the music business being what it is, and with me having limited influence, if we can say that, it hasn't happened that we've been able to get y'all out here again. But it has been in my mind ever since then that y'all need to come back here in some kind of constellation, preferably with Jonas Fjeld again, but if not with him, then with somebody, because you guys made such an impression here. I think you got 5 stars on every night in the local news. Yeah.
And the people were so receptive and loved us. I mean, it was wonderful. And I think we've just had one, event after another happen where it just, it was automatically talk of us coming back, but there was this one thing after another with record companies and so forth, and managers, and things happened that we did not get back. We were ready to, and I would say we would probably still be ready to come, if something happened.
I will say this, Jonas is a friend of mine. We're not tight, we're not super close, but I love him, he loves me, and we have worked together before, and I have not lost the hope that something can be done with those live recordings, and get those released and get those out there to the people. I know he wants to do it. He said that he wants to do it. He's doing this thing with Judy Collins now. So he's busy, but I know he's still thinking about that project from 2015.
Right.
So those recordings are still there. It's just a matter of, I don't know if there's some things that would need to be adjusted or what, but I know he wants to do something with that.
Yeah, we've been looking for either doing, another concert series with him, or there's been talk about, like you said, going in the studio and just cleaning, because whenever you do a live recording, and I don't care who it is, if you're going to put out a professional recording, there's always tweaking.
Yes.
To be done, to a lot of things. So, but if it happens, I'd be all for it.
It was just for me, it was pretty cool. It was amazing to see you perform with them. Because I know his band, I know those musicians. I've played with some of them. I've done a lot of writing with the drummer Kato Christensen, so I know those guys, and I'm like, I had this idea in my head about how it would be, and of course Jonas Fjeld had his idea, but nobody really knew how it was going to be. But I was there that first day when you guys rehearsed after you got off the plane. And I just knew that it was a perfect mix, because you all brought the gospel and the soul with your voices, and then of course you with your piano playing, and you guys just melted it right in with his kind of rusty rock/country type of thing, and it just fit. Folk, and it just fit. So that's what I'm getting at when I talk about your flexibility as a musician. And you functioned as the musical director for those shows as well.
Right. Yeah.
It was fun for me to watch you. It was fun. It was an informative thing. It was a learning experience for me to watch how you rehearsed with them and just see you in action.
Man, let me tell you, I'm going to be honest, but I have to say it the way I feel though. But you were so accommodating during that time, too accommodating to me, because I know that at that time you were a little under. I
was very sick. I had pneumonia big time.
Thank you for
Yeah.
saying it. And he kept coming out because he wanted to make sure we were good. And the air is like it's so crisp. It's wintertime. There's snow on the ground, and it was just like crazy conditions. Sometimes I'm like, why is this man here? Stay home. Get in the bed. You need to be rest. But I thought there's literally like 2 days when I said, I think that man may die because we're here.
I've had several runs with pneumonia before, but I think that is the worst run of pneumonia I've ever had in my life. But I was on fire for the project. I was just so glad to have, put that whisper in Jonas Fjeld's ear and play my part in making it happen. And I just wanted to make sure it happened. That's all.
Well, not only did you do that though, but you wanted to make sure that we were okay.
Yes.
As well.
Yes.
So you came and made sure we knew where to go. We could get something to eat. Yeah. We could do this and do that. You just made sure. So we appreciate you. We'll never forget you for that.
That's love, my friend. That's love.
Hey, appreciate you, brother. Love you, man.
Hey, back at you. Like I said, we talk about you on a regular basis here. You are not forgotten in this home. Not at all.
Hey, well, listen, hopefully with, right now, I've said it a couple of times, but not in-depthly though, but this world situation with the coronavirus is so bad.
It is.
And for performing artists, and of which I'm one, you're one, but for people who do it as a living, it's just a nightmare right now. And there is no, this is the same for people who play professional sports, soccer, football, NBA, all of that. Until they find a vaccine, we're probably not looking at doing any concerts. Everything will be virtual or something that's recorded in a studio because I'll put it to you this way, no building or different event center will book a concert or have you come and they have to sit, you're losing at least 50% of your space in terms of, selling seats.
Right.
You cannot be one by one. It's like you got to be every fourth seat over. There's no way they're going to recoup that money in order to have that artist and pay the artist fee and all of that.
These are rough times in the music business, and I am, it's going to work itself out, but I think there's going to be more frustration. There's going to be more lost gigs. There's going to be a lot of music productions, whether it's an individual artist or a band project, that are going to go under before things settle into a new reality. It's rough, man. It's rough out there. It's rough.
And in America here, we I will say this. I respect the position, the office of the president, but in America here, I'm not fond of our current president, and I just feel like there's a coronavirus task force, and there are different political people on that task force. Our Vice President Pence is the head of that task force. Yeah. And then we have the health officials that come out, and the health officials are straddling the line of trying to keep a job.
I was just going to say they want to keep
kicked out.
Yeah, I was just going to say they want to keep that gig, but then they also have their professionalism, which says they have to tell the people the truth about the situation. That's not a good position to be in.
Well, it's not good for them, but I hate to say it, but
it's worse for the people.
Say it starts at the head though.
Sure.
If our president would have been more proactive in terms of wearing a mask and showing people how it's done a lot, and given the right direction instead of mixed signals to a lot of us, we'd be in a better place, because right now it's every governor for themselves, but the governors take a tip from whoever's in charge.
It's a sad thing to watch. It's a frustrating thing to watch, as an American living outside of the shores of America. I look back and I see what's going on and my heart hurts. It just, I look at these helicopters filming lines of cars that might be, a couple, 3-4 miles long of cars waiting to get food.
Yeah.
And to see that level of suffering, that's not supposed to happen in our country.
We've had over 40 million. It's now something crazy, but that's been a while ago. But it was 40 some,
Yeah.
over 40 something, like 42, 43
Yeah.
million people unemployed.
And as you say, it has to do with the leadership. It doesn't have to be this hard on the people. If we had proper leadership, it wouldn't be. And I look at the situation here in Norway, and we don't have any problems. We were shut down for as long as it took to keep things under wraps.
Right.
I'm not sure what the unemployment numbers are, but it's nowhere near, double-digit
Yeah.
unemployment, nowhere near that. We
Right.
don't have a problem. Our medical system is not stressed. We have plenty of room if things were to blow up again. And I'm thinking, why can't it be like that back home? Well, the answer to that is poor leadership. You can't have the boss. You cannot have the president denying the seriousness of the situation and expect things to go well. It's not. It doesn't match.
It just doesn't match, and I think the worst part now, looking into the future, although we just talked about the bleakness of doing these live performances in concert halls, which are not going to happen. Same thing with choirs and churches. People are not sitting next to it. Won't be a choir. It'll be some. People will be spread out, but it's not going to be that. But the whole thing just looks it just looks so bleak to me, and I'm hoping that we can get on one accord with that we can find this vaccine, and that we can still respect each other by wearing masks and being protective.
One can only hope, but again, when I see the situation in the White House, I don't think I think things are going to get worse. I think there's going to be more division. I think riots are going to start to flower up again. I think that more people are going to get sick and die. I think there's going to be more suffering.
And there's not going to be, which brings me to the point I was trying to make. I forgot my thought. The notion that everything was going to happen in waves, and I still believe there may be another bigger wave that's coming, but we are still in phase one of these waves that they're talking about, at least here in America. And but what we have found out is that it's like not really so much as a wave as it's been just almost a constant.
Yeah.
It just moves from like New York was the epicenter and Washington State in the beginning, and they're at two ends of the United States.
Yeah.
Now it has moved to Florida
and Arizona,
Texas, Alabama, Arizona, California. They're seeing some of the highest numbers that we've got some of the highest numbers of this whole thing right now, but it just started basically in New York.
Yeah. And I heard some
our numbers are down.
And I heard some doctor from the CDC this morning on television saying that when things start to calm down in Florida and Texas and whatnot, when it calms down there, that might be when the second wave, so to speak, goes back to New York, Washington State, and those places where it first started. So it's like, oh man, how long until things settle down again? So I don't mean to be bleak or whatnot, but I just say it just does not promise for a good future with this when we see how the president is handling it.
No, and
I don't take any joy. I don't take any joy in saying that either.
Right. He was not my favorite person before this.
Really?
We don't have to get off on talking about him so much, but he was not my favorite, and I respect all people's political parties and decisions or what they want to do.
Sure.
He was not my favorite person to deal with this before this, but this where we are now is just at a terrible place. And I will say that, for those who say that, it was a hoax, because he started out with it was a hoax. This thing is real. I've had friends die from it. I had coronavirus myself, although I didn't do the official test. That's too long of a story. But I had it for a month. and I went through all the symptoms, and it's amazing that I didn't get hospitalized, but
Wow.
it's real.
Wow.
It's very real.
I'm sorry to hear you got friends who passed away from it.
Yeah,
That's terrible.
One of my friends in Brooklyn, my best friend's sister, her name was Cheryl, and she had some health complications, respiratory, all the while anyway, but it took her like in one weekend.
Wow, man. I'm sorry to hear that.
Yeah.
Wow. And unfortunately, I think there's going to be more stories like that. More and more people are going to have more and more friends and family members who pass, and it's because we don't have the proper leadership at the top. But as you say, there's some governors who are stepping up and doing what they have to do. So we can only hope that they see the light and do things the way they're supposed to be done.
Right. Our Governor Cuomo here in New York, for the whole state of New York, Governor Cuomo has been wonderful. He really had stepped up to the task of, just keeping us informed, doing the right things. And he really had a practical approach to dealing with this. And, no one likes to wear masks. No one likes to be socially distanced, and no one likes to be out of work. But when you really realize that the choice is either you stay at home and you stay self-quarantined, or you die.
Yeah,
there will be nothing after this. You can miss these summer barbecues and the beach and vacation, but if you don't miss these and sacrifice, there will be no more for you.
And that's almost word for word what Governor Cuomo said. I watched most of his press conferences, and that is the message that he put out there. You may not like it, but here are the choices, and the alternative is X, but you have choice Y over there. So let's do this to avoid that. And it just made sense. It just made sense. I could see him running for president. Maybe if not this time, it might be too late this time, but next election, after this one, I could see him running for president.
I could see him definitely running for president, and I love his brother too, Chris.
Cuomo.
Yeah. They're both good guys. I met. I don't know if I've ever met our governor, but I met Chris when we did. I've done a lot of TV with Patti, and we did the Today Show. Not Today Show, Good Morning America one Sunday from Bryant Park, their outdoor park series. And he was one of the hosts working for GM, Good Morning America at the time. And so we talked a little bit. I think that was his second gig ever. I think he started at Fox News and then he went to Good Morning America. Yeah. He's cool people, though.
He really seems like somebody to be fun to hang out with.
Yeah, he would.
Hey, let me ask you something. Did you ever, let me ask you this. Who is the most interesting celebrity or musician that you've ever met? You don't have to tell me any details about what you spoke about, but who is the one that you thought was the most interesting to meet?
This is going to sound crazy, but I've met pretty much.
You've met a lot of people.
Like I said, I haven't met Madonna, but everybody pretty much other than that is relative to music and any music that I had growing up, I met or know now. And we actually got to perform once for Michael Jackson and Elizabeth Taylor. And they were right on, you can go on YouTube and look it up, and I think it was honoring her 65th birthday or something at the time. But just look up Patti LaBelle, Elizabeth Taylor birthday. And we sang for Michael Jackson, met him one time. Prince used to come to all of our shows. When
he loved Patti. He loved Patti. Yeah.
Yeah. And he performed with us one night on stage. I think we've done that twice. But just being around this greatness that not everybody can say that they even met the person or was on the same stage, or even in the same building. And so I don't take it for granted, but, just wonderful.
It must be inspiring.
It really is inspiring. Now, there's some people, like I said, that goes back to that book. There's only one or two people in recording and dealing with music. Woo! If I wrote a book about him, it would be scandalous. But I can't do it.
I have a similar thing, but only one. It is this is a famous producer. Now people who know what I do with my writing and who I write for, they're going to know exactly who I'm talking about. But I can't get sued if I don't say his name. So
right.
This guy is a famous producer. He got his start in the middle to late 60s, so he's an older gentleman. He has produced some very big names in country and rock, classic rock. And a friend of mine I had written a country album for a friend of mine. And he got this gentleman to produce that album. I was more excited than I've ever been when having to do with music because of this producer who I respected, and I never in my life ever thought I would get to meet him or anyone like him. And when we got into the studio, he turned out to be the biggest jackass I've ever met in my life.
Oh my God. Really?
And I was so disappointed.
Wow.
Now, and when I say he was a jackass, now here's where the bizarreness of that whole experience comes in. He was a jackass to everybody except for me. He was a jackass to the engineer. He was a jackass to all of the other studio technicians. He was a jackass to the band and to the main artist. But he loved me.
Wow.
And it was strange. It was just very strange. And when I say he loved me, I take no pride in that. It's almost, I feel dirty. because he was so friendly to me, and it was just strange.
That's one of the things that akins me to your to your spirit, because I would be the same way. I would be like, some people would say, oh well, he or she didn't treat me bad, so I don't feel any way about them.
Right.
But if you're treating my brother or sister bad that's in the room with me that I'm working with, I'm associated by that. I don't have to always speak on it, but I really, and then if it gets bad enough, you will say something. But I like it that, you recognize that even though he was nice to you, he was not such a nice person. Exactly.
The whole thing ended up to actually be quite a beautiful experience. The artist who I had written the album for, of course, this was the opportunity of a lifetime for him to get that exposure, not just in Norway as a country artist, but back home in the States. We're talking Nashville level, because of who this producer is, right?
Right.
So this producer was so nasty in the studio that they threw him out. Okay. Here's another thing. This studio is way out in the country. It's actually towards Sweden. It's closer to Sweden than it is to Oslo. I'll put it to you that way. And they threw him out of the studio, but he needed to get back here to Drammen. So because they were going to keep recording, and I was just there as, to coach him on his English pronunciation and maybe paint up some of the lyrics I'd written so they could get by without me. So I drove this producer 2 hours back.
Wow. To us,
just to get him out of the studio. So I'm sitting in the car alone with this guy who was both a legendary hero of mine, but I was very disappointed in. Mm-hmm. So the conflict of being alone with him in a car like that. But here comes the beauty of that whole situation. I took him back to his hotel. He's in there for the night. And then the artist, who was the main artist, called a meeting with me and the artist himself and this producer at the hotel, in the conference room at the hotel. And the producer said at that meeting, he says, if you get rid of your band, if you change your image a little bit, if you do as I say, I'll make you a star. I'll take you back to Nashville and I'll make you a star. And do you know what this friend of mine said? This artist said, he looked this famous Nashville producer in the eye and he said, sir, I cannot do that. these people who you insulted are my friends and brothers. And if you want me to turn my back on them, then that says a lot about you. Have a nice day. I'm done with you. I'll never forget. I will never forget that, because the beauty in that situation is that he stood up for his principles. A lot of people would have been humming and hawing and trying to finagle their way into, protecting their friends, but also getting that contract, getting that exposure. Right. And he turned his back on the whole thing, and he did it for friendship and loyalty. I'll never forget that.
And that will come back, in a good way to him.
It has. We released the album anyway, so.
I did. I'll tell you real quickly. I have two, but real quickly. So, I was doing this play in Detroit, a Christmas play, and I did it for 2 years. And the play is basically, it's about a 2.5 month thing where we rehearse. And so there was one situation where there was a white costumer, and then there was this star of the show, and the star of the show is a wonderful person. To me, anyway, I've never had a problem with her, and but something went on, and the costumer said, and now this is a Caucasian lady talking to a black lady. She says, after she gets fed up with something, she says, you really ought to let me dress you. I do dress black women. Well, she got slapped.
Oh, literally slapped.
She got slapped by this lady who's been nice to me, but that was one. Yeah. Another time, and the funny thing is, this has all been in musical theater. There was another time when I was playing with a notable director here in New York who does plays. He's done Broadway plays. He's a Tony Award winner. And he said, well, John, I know you're working still with Patti and you can't go out with us with this particular play. At the time, he said, but will you just come to the rehearsals while you can and help with some of the voicing of, teaching them, doing some of a couple of these recording artists. They're going to use songs in the performance. So they wanted me to take those songs and translate the voices into something that would be better for theater.
Okay, yeah.
If you understand,
I do,
the backing music.
Yeah.
And so I came in and I did all of that. Well, and some people might know who this is after I said, but I'm not mentioning any names. But it was a married duo, two separate stars in their own right.
I think I know already.
I was friends with the guy for many years before he got married to this one.
Okay.
But she came into rehearsal because I had to redo some of her songs with the background singers, just their background parts. She came in, he doesn't know what he's doing. What's he talking about? And blah, 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 blah. She went on, she really was another jackass. And she showed out. So the director, who is a friend of mine, I hate to say it, but I knew if I said something to the director, and which I had to because she was reverting all of my work back to her original stuff.
Yeah.
So I had to mention it to the director. Well, she got read the riot act, read up one downside of that theater to the other. Yeah.
John, I think you should write that book.
Mince words.
I think you should write the book, man.
And the girls, and as far as this couple is no longer married now, but the thing that crushed me about it is that I always thought she was so beautiful, and like she sang, her voice and the way that she molded the songs, it was like a beautiful person, a beautiful personality, but her in person was a train wreck.
I tell you, that's so disappointing. Get this image up of who the artist or the celebrity is, and then you meet them, and then it I don't know, that disappointment.
blows your mind.
I will say this. I met the famous producer, Eddie Kramer. He was sound engineer for Woodstock, Jimi Hendrix's producer, Led Zeppelin. I met him. I got to speak with him for about 20 minutes. He was here in Norway. He was backing a band, some crazy metal band, a bunch of long-haired kids just playing that crazy music. Very talented, but that kind of metal stuff is not quite my thing. But anyway, that was the project. And before the release concert, which was in Oslo, they had a song contest where any band could send a song in to Eddie Kramer. They sent it into his record company, and then if you passed the muster there, it would get sent to Eddie Kramer. And I think there was like 10 songs that he evaluated himself, and he was going to announce the winner at the release party. So I was so cheeky, if I can use that word. I submitted a song that was very R&B and soul. I submitted that song to this contest for metal songs, but it got me the right amount of attention. Of course, I didn't get chosen, but I did get invited to the release party, and I did get to speak to Eddie Kramer for 20 minutes. Wow. And I did get invited to do his. They had a company party for the record company down on the coastline, down in southern Norway. It was a party for his company, and I got to perform there.
Wow! See how things work? So
things work. Musicians, artists, actors and actresses. You can't be afraid to stick your feet in unknown waters. I submitted an R&B song to a metal contest, and this is what came out of it.
Right.
But I guess the point of it is that meeting Eddie Kramer was totally unexpected, but he turned out to be exactly the good-hearted person that I'd always heard about in the media. He was that guy. And you kind of get a feel for that. When you get to talk to someone like that for as long as 20 minutes, you can tell if they really want to talk to you or not. You can tell if they mean what they're saying. And it was very refreshing to talk to that guy and just experience that he was the good person that I thought he was.
Well, you've done what one of my, every now and then I talk to young people about some of the do's and don'ts in the music industry. And, for aspiring artists, these are like high school kids that want to do. And I always tell them, number one, have a plan. You have to have a plan, especially because a lot of them want to move from one city to another.
Yeah.
Say, move from, Ohio somewhere to New York City or move to LA, but they don't really have a plan. So I always tell them to, have a plan. But what you just did was one of the mistakes that I think that I made very early on, is that I would do my gig and I would just I wouldn't go to any parties. No parties, no socializing, no nothing. And so I know that, at the time, Patti thought, well, you went out to the club? You went partying? I wasn't doing that. I would just do my gig and go off and be by myself. Right. And I would not do that. And you can't always be on every party, but I will say this, you do have to, as you have just witnessed to us, you have to be out there a little bit. You've got to put yourself out there to connect with some people. That's the way you make anything happen. Connections. Who would have thought you would have done, submitted an R&B song for a heavy metal thing and still got what you got out of it. Right. Exactly. So you sometimes you just have to dare to do something that you wouldn't expect of yourself. Yeah. If I could throw advice out there to a young musician or a young artist or a young actor or actress, it's that, you cannot be afraid to do something that you normally wouldn't do. Just do it and see what the result of it is. Right. You have to be daring. Yeah. You have to be daring, in other words. Right. I agree. And the younger, and I'll say the younger that you start, doing some of this stuff for the preparation. It's also when I also tell people I cannot tell you the number of art students And when I say art student, like School of the Performing Arts.
Okay. Yeah.
How many of them I have? I've worked as a auditioner for several different people. America's Got Talent is one of them that I did, but I cannot tell you how many auditions I've done in terms of me being somebody who was hiring or, approving talent. And you get all these students from the arts that come in, but no one has taught them a class on presenting themselves at an audition or how to act. They come in instead of, you've done 4 years of vocal lessons, and you come in and then you say, what do you want me to sing?
Oh,
what do you want? Well, what do you want to sing? Well, I don't know. I don't know.
That's terrible. How could they get to that position and not know what they want to do?
And how can you come to an audition that's clearly for, say, Beauty and the Beast or The Lion King and not have researched something from that genre to sing,
Well,
I don't understand.
Well, that's a lack of mentoring. Those young kids need a mentor. Maybe they count on I don't know. Maybe that is the downfall of, or the byproduct of all of this reality TV. All these young people see are other young people who are just famous. They're just all of a sudden there and they're famous, and they don't see any value in mentoring or in preparing themselves for that fame that they desire.
Right, and that will be the thing that will make you or break you. And a lot of you'd be surprised just your general energy.
Sure.
You're like, well, he or she came in and she wasn't prepared. She didn't know what the audition was for. She fumbled around. She kind of wasted our time for 2 or 3 minutes when we've got hundreds of people to see today. Next.
Yeah. No, ain't nobody.
And you could have the greatest voice in the world,
as they say in the streets, and ain't nobody got time for that.
Nobody. Oh my God! But yeah, they need I think they really need a class in these performing arts schools and in college. They just need a class. It can be one semester or it can be just a 2-week thing that they can include. But they need to know what you do, because I see, this not only happens in music, it happens in the the business professional world, where people don't come dressed appropriately. They don't come knowing, they don't have a proper It's all about, a lot of it is about preparation.
If you were to ever be offered a gig as maybe a college or university teacher to teach a course like that, would you say yes to that, John?
I'd say yes to that.
Yeah.
In fact, I was, because of this coronavirus situation that's happening, I was thinking about some of the jobs I've been offered over the years. And one of them was at Berklee School of Music.
Yes.
And my friend tried to get me there for over a year. But I didn't take him up on the offer.
Why not?
And now I'm thinking, well, at the time when he offered, I had just moved from Washington, D.C. to New York. And I was actually commuting back and forth on the weekends to do a minister of music position at that church in D.C. So once I finally got that settled where I didn't have to go to D.C. anymore, then he offers me this thing going to Boston. And it started out with, we'll get you a place on, it's right off campus. They'll, put you up, and it'll be one day. And I could see that the one day was going to quickly turn to 2 and 3.
And all of a sudden you're living in Boston.
Yeah, and that was not the plan.
Okay. Now that would have been a heck of a gig, though. I mean, that is a well-respected school of music. But you were, I don't know, is it your gig with Miss Patti that kept that from being a permanent gig for you?
Well, I will say this: it's that to a certain degree, it is. But one of the things, I had my own dreams and aspirations as far as doing music. But the other thing is that Patti LaBelle is like, she and Whitney Houston were like two of my top 2 singers that I loved. And so then to just get a job, who would have known that I would have gotten a job?
Yeah.
So there have been things that I have had to turned down because of my love for her, and the fact that if she loves you and you're doing, you're doing all of the right musical necessary things, that she will keep you. And
30
that's
years.
legitimate work. That's legitimate work.
Yeah.
Everybody doesn't have that stability in,
you've
music.
had, like we said at the beginning, you've had 30 years of stability and solid work, and I'm sure it's been a great learning experience. I don't know how much she shares with you about the business end, but you probably see enough of that on your own, the business end of things, enhanced because you have the gig that you have. But for all that it gives you, I can imagine that it has also kept you from realizing certain things that you aspire to do on your own.
Yeah,
I'm not trying to cause any trouble, but I'm just
no.
I'm just making that observation that there might be something that you've quite a few things maybe that you've had to pass by because it would conflict with your current gig with Miss Patti.
Right. Yeah, and there have been some things that I've had to pass by, like basically most of the musical theater that I was doing, I couldn't do anymore. I have done a show, off-Broadway show here about Mom's Mabley, and I've done that. I did a couple of things with that before, but there's some things that I just can't get involved in. And there have been many times when I've been called by, some people in the music industry work for more than just one artist.
Yes.
They work for, they work for other artists. Like Stephanie Mills is a friend of mine, but I've worked for her before. But I know they kind of stopped calling. They kind of stopped calling me after a while because it seemed like every time she needed, I would go and fill in for either a singer or a musician. But then it got to the point where every time she called me that she was in an emergency, I had a gig with Patti that weekend.
I see, yeah.
And it went back and forth like 3 times with different dates. And it, so it just didn't work out.
Stephanie Mills, can you tell her there's a country boy from Ohio living in Norway that just loves her?
I can.
Can you do that?
I will.
I bet she doesn't have another fan like me. A country boy from Ohio living in Norway.
In Norway. I'll tell her. I'll tell her.
Well, I want to let me wind this down. We've been talking for a good hour and a half, but I want to thank you, John Stanley. I don't want to say I'm glad you had time to do this because you had time to do this because of the COVID situation and lack of work right now. But I am glad that you were able to do this. I've been wanting to do this actually for quite some time, but I'm always watching on your social media feed, and every time I would think, okay, let me call John and get him on this podcast. I would see that you had a gig or that, it would be on a Sunday and I knew you were going to be doing the church, so
right.
This was good timing now.
No, this was perfect, but I would have done it before, but sometimes I am that's the other thing is, sometimes that's one of my sins. I procrastinate sometimes.
You too? And, you as well?
Yeah.
Well,
yeah. So, but I'm a procrastinator and sometimes, it's, I don't know, just different things in life happen. But all you had to do was ask. And for instance, I know that you asked me something recently about when the coronavirus thing had first started out doing. And I think I got back to you a couple of days later, but I was like, well, obviously the time has passed. He's not interested anymore. I guess he wanted an instant.
I was wondering at that time, and you didn't answer, so that was it.
Oh man! Well, hey, listen, and that's the way it goes sometimes.
No, but in all seriousness, we talk about you on a regular basis here, and Terrence Talley as well. And I should call him up as well. Because the interesting thing with Terrence is, like I said, our families, his family and mine, knew each other before we were in
Ohio, right?
Yeah, in Ohio. Yeah, we went to the same church growing up, and Terrence was, I'm not sure how old he is, but he's at least a couple years older than me. So he was always like one of those, when you're kids, if somebody's maybe only a year or two older than you, you think they have so much more life experience. So we looked at Terrence as a hero, me and my sister. And I would just love to get Terrence on and just reminisce about those old days. I don't know how interesting that would be for my listeners, but it would be interesting for me.
It would be interesting for and I'm sure he would do it. I don't. I haven't talked to him recently. It's really been crazy. You know, we mostly do like a little Facebook chat or something, but. And we usually talk a lot when it comes to doing some singing stuff, but everything is just shut down. It's really bad right now.
Yeah, everything is literally shut down. It's just, well, I don't know. All we can do is cross our fingers and hope that the good leadership from the governor of New York, Governor Cuomo, stays positive and supportive as he's doing, so that when things are able to open up, it'll do so in a responsible way, and hopefully some of these concert halls will start opening up. Hopefully some of these opportunities to start performing again will open up. I mean, that's your gig, that's your thing.
And I'm not just single-sided. I mean, this is not just a U.S. problem. It's not just a Norway problem. It's global.
It's global. It's global.
And I know that I forgot, there's certain countries now, and I think the U.S. did it at one time, but, we're not traveling to different countries because...
we just had our vacation canceled. We were supposed to go home. I was going to see the rest of my family in Ohio, but our plane got canceled. They refused to fly to the States because of the corona situation.
Wow.
So there goes our vacation.
I was thinking about, I've got friends that go on cruises regularly, and they had already had 2 cruises, and they were all canceled. And at first they weren't going to, I think the company wasn't going to give back the money, but then they realized they had to. Yeah,
we got all of our money back, so that was a good thing. But it just, I feel it in my very soul, that the disappointment of not being able to go home for this vacation. But
on the vacation is one of the ways that most of us, for me it is, but it's one of the ways that I actually do feel rejuvenated.
Oh yeah. You have to do that. You got to charge those batteries, and you do that by turning your back on the hustle and bustle of your day-to-day gig and going away somewhere. But on the positive side of things, instead of traveling back home to the States, we might jump in the car, and it'll be a 3-day drive up to our other home, way up north, way out in the middle of nowhere, right by the ocean. When you see me posting pictures of reindeer and stuff running across my property, that's our other home way up north.
Is this the one that's in the mountains?
That's the one that's in the mountains. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's beautiful.
Yeah. You have to marry right. See, I married into that. So,
and that you did.
And that I did.
Wow.
But listen, John, I really appreciate this. It's been a lot of fun. I think my listeners have gotten a little lift from hearing your story. I think you have a motivating story. And
well, I appreciate it. I hope I'm not terse and just what do you call it, disrespectful, and just I just hope I'm not bumming everybody out.
No. Well, and the things we talked about, politics and the president and the White House and whatnot, that's. I would hope that people.
Reality.
I would hope that people would tolerate that we have the view of things that we have and that we have the opinions that we have. So it's not a political podcast, but
right.
We talk about whatever we have on our hearts, and you can't help, if you're a thinking, feeling person, then the political situation is on your heart. So we talk about, we talk about it. It's on our heart.
We just talk about what's real.
Exactly. All right, John, much love to you. Much respect for you. And I'm excited to see what happens. Get that solo album out.
I know. Look, love to you and your wife and the kids.
Yeah.
And don't send me any more pictures of lambs, please.
Hey, man. Okay, I can say that, but there's worse things. There are worse dishes than that lamb's head. I'm
sure.
You believe me? Okay.
Oh, don't want to see it.
Well, thanks a lot for doing this, John. I appreciate it. Much love to you.
Thank you, John. You too.
All right, everybody. The fantastic good friend of mine, John Stanley. Bye, everybody.
I'm coming home. I'm coming home. coming home. I'm coming home. Yes, I am, my Lord. Oh, my Lord. Lord, I'm coming home.